Hi, everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today? I got a little bit of a stiff neck. Let me just fix this up. Oh, that feels a lot better. Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained, things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
No human being would stack books like this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. The instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I? Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have the talent.
It's Miller time.
Luminous being so we, not this crude matter.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Enough, I get the point.
You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Sometimes happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you gonna call?
It's showtime.
All right, welcome to episode 310 of Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. Tonight, my guest is Chris Jordan. We're going to be talking about the power of frequency. He was on the show, I can't even remember. I got to say a year or so ago, and it was a great conversation, a real fun conversation, but the show got cut short because something happened, an internet issue on Chris's end, and he literally like froze mid-screen. And mid-screen, he froze mid-word on the screen, and it was such a shame. And this is how busy he is and how busy I am, is that now we finally have managed to get together again to continue that conversation. And like I said, it's about a year. But I'm looking forward to having him on tonight. It's going to be real fun. If you enjoyed the conversation last year, you're going to enjoy this one. And if you missed last year's, you're going to enjoy it anyway. So before I get started, I do just want to let you guys know we're going to be running not fast tonight, but I'm not going to do the usual say hello to people in the chat sort of thing. I'm saying hello to you guys right now, and that's about as good as it's going to get. It looks like there's just two of you that say hello, so I could do that. Three. Hey, Wayne, Kevin, and Cole. I see you guys. Thank you guys for being here early. Appreciate it. All right, so let's bring him on, the man of the hour, and let's hope we can continue that great conversation from a year ago, Mr. Chris Jordan.
Hey, How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me back on, bud.
I've been looking forward to this since the last one.
I've been looking forward to it, especially since the last one, but even more so since we rescheduled. I've been because we were having a great conversation. We were getting into some really deep stuff, and then the world of my internet over here crashed, which
Yeah.
is pretty rare. So yeah,
If memory serves correct, I think we were talking about 5G at the time, and then the signal got cut.
yeah,
I've had weird conversations on this show where that'll happen, where
yep,
we talk about something and
yeah.
all of a sudden someone freezes up and has to go away. It's strange.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just reading into it.
And I don't know, as an old Coast to Coast AM listener, it harkens back to the days of Art Bell, where he would be in the middle of a really hard conversation about something like that, or just hidden technologies, and like wham, the connection would just get cut off, and he'd come back about 15 minutes later, like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what happened there. I run my own broadcast. Everything was still going.
Yeah. It's strange. I think one of the weirdest ones I've had was Robert Clotworthy was on the show,
Oh, he's cool.
and yeah, he's a great dude. And he was on twice, which was awesome. I want
Oh,
to get him
nice.
back on again. Maybe I'll do that again soon. But so he was on and he was talking about how, because I asked him, has he ever had like a UFO or alien experience or
Mm.
anything? Figure the guy that's doing the voiceover all the time. And he's like, honestly, no. And he's like, what's all that about? And then he starts calling out to the aliens. He, and all
Yeah,
of a
yeah.
sudden, his voice, not to me, but to the people in the chat. And when I rewatched the show later, his voice got all staticky throughout the rest of it. As soon as he starts calling out to the aliens to, reach out to him and
Yeah. Give
everything
me a
else.
message.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, that is something that I talk about regularly, is the idea of just literally putting something out there. Even the idea of that being a frequency that you are putting out as a thought form, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
because it's you verbalize what you've
yeah.
internalized, and that's when it starts getting kind of interesting. And nothing seems to become real
Yep.
until that happens, until you put thought into action.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the idea of if if you really want to do something, A, give it a deadline, B, put it down on paper, like put it on a calendar so that it's facing you every day, but there is a concept that goes way back, like all the way to uh Kabbalism and Jewish mysticism. And that is the concept that we uniquely amongst creation were breathed life into by the creator. And because we were breathed into in that way, and because the creator spoke creation into being, we have the same ability. So our voice carries that same frequency of creation that the
Yeah,
creator does. So our words and the frequencies that we create with our mouths and our bodies are way more powerful than we actually think.
yeah, and it's something that we just do it without even really thinking about it.
Yep.
It's instantaneous, and for a lot of us anyway, that have the ability to verbalize their thoughts, I don't think we really sit there ever and think about the fact of how strange that is for us to do, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of creatures that do that, let alone do it in the way that we do it and communicate in the way that we
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah, no, that is a definite fact. And it's interesting because I have an 8-year-old son, and I spent years in youth ministry and worked with kids and things like that, but really seeing his evolution of not just understanding, but uh grasp of how to express himself in that kind of way. And the fact of like, oh no, like, wait a minute, like I now see ideas dawn on him while we're working together on stuff, like where the light bulb comes on and he's like, "Oh, I get it. I get it." And it's really cool to see that. It's great to see that. And yeah, we are unique in that kind of way. It's interesting. One of my good friends is Lynn Buchanan, from the Stargate remote viewing program. I took classes from him. I've interviewed him on my show numerous times. He's a great, awesome individual. Um, and I asked him one time in an interview if he'd ever remote viewed aliens and what he was told, what he saw. And he was like, "Yeah, the thing is, um, they are there, but the reason why we have their technology is because they became a hive mind generations ago. So they no longer have the ingenuity to reapply a technology. They know how to live as a hive and how to do what they do. And that's what they're programmed to do. They don't know how to take something and repurpose it, or to take something and evolve it to the next step, because they no longer have that spark of individualism that makes you want to do something like that with something. And I was like, oh wow, that is an interesting concept to think about. Just the idea that they have evolved to a point of necessity as a race, that they need to be a hive mind in order to adapt and do what they need to do, but that also means that they are no longer adaptable in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy on an extinctual level,
Mhm.
which I think is so utterly depressing.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's
No, in that
and
Fight Club, like, I wanna shoot every panda that won't screw to save its species kind of way, you know? Like, pardon pardon the language on the show.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, and I've heard this a lot, and it's one of those things where I I love listening to all of this stuff. I never
Mhm.
know what to believe or not believe, because that's just me. By nature, I'm a healthy skeptic,
You should be.
but I'm a believer that in possibility. So
Yep.
sometimes those two sides really fight over something. But then I go, okay, let me, for the sake of just arguing a point, and I'll have this thought in my head all the time. It's very frustrating. I'm not arguing with anybody else. I'm usually just arguing with myself. That's some kind of form of insanity, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so
I
I'm
do the
thinking, well,
same
let me
thing.
let me buy into it, right? Let me buy into all the stuff that I've heard that's on a consensus kind of basis, because I've heard about the hive mind, I've heard about all that kind of stuff,
Sure.
and that is kind of this advanced life form, and they've reached this certain form, and the reason that they're tapping into Earth and maybe many other Earths
Oh, no, you froze up on me now, Peter.
along. Look at that. Right? All of a sudden, we
What
start
is
talking.
this?
I'm telling you, man, this is like the 10th time this has happened on this channel. Anytime it's like, okay, let me, and then anytime it seems like you're getting close to a subject that's a little touchy, the
Yeah,
algorithm
yeah.
is like, let's just slow the bandwidth down a bit.
Let's just dial that back. Yeah.
And then hope that we got squirrel brain and we're like, what were they
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I can't remember.
Exactly.
But anyway, so so they now need to reproduce through genetic engineering and things like that,
Mm.
and that's the reason, because biologically they can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
because they've evolved so much to the point that they just really can't, and it's become this kind of almost like an incestuous
Yeah, I was just
species.
about to say they're so fully inbred that they can't even breed anymore
Yeah.
in that kind of way.
And that's
Yeah.
like a big thing, and I'm always wondering if that's the peak of evolution galactically. That is
just
so
intergalactic hillbillies.
Yeah, and I really hope that that's not like the
I hope
norm.
that's not the
You
case.
know, maybe it's like a section
Good guy,
of whatever is out there.
the comic book nerd inside of me immediately sees the invasion happen, and this clip of
Yeah.
intergalactic hillbillies playing on the screen, and that's why it
And
took over. You know,
and I
that's
gotta
that's
say,
why they came.
I don't think James T. Kirk would be having it. No way.
But in all sincerity, yeah, it's one of those. It's interesting to follow the rabbit holes and to go along with so many different concepts that are out there with understanding these phenomena and these things. Like even right now, all of the hype about Three Eye Atlas and stuff like that.
I haven't been following any of I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I
As a
haven't been following any of it. Can you
as
give
a
me kind of
as a backyard
cliff notes?
astrophotographer and astronomy nut, it's a comet. It's a comet. Like every telescope out there, NASA not even included, folks, is like it's a comet. Um, so it had some interesting characteristics, most definitely. The main thing that really hit was Avi Loeb. You know, he's a big name. He comes from a major university, professor of astrophysics, things like that. Um, but but what he basically said was that what a scientist is supposed to say. They're supposed to hyperbolically hypothesize, you know. Let's get as crazy thought experiment as possible. It's coming from around the constellation Sagittarius. That's where the wow signal came from. What if there's like a 2 to 3% chance that, you know, this thing might be alien technology? So that's what he said. What you saw was a bunch of AI pictures, um, reports everywhere saying it is alien technology, that there are signals received, that you know it's got weird behaviors, and it's like none of that's going on. None of that. Not a single major telescope in the world has reported any of that. What they've reported is it has anti-tail. There's a few that did. Shunian Atlas had one. And that was the Neanderthal comet that came through the sky last year.
It
It
kind of
had
reminds me of
a
like this.
forward-facing horn.
It kind of when I heard about it, and the reason I didn't look into it past hearing about it was because it reminded me a lot of a Muamua.
Exactly.
And I thought like that's another
One Eye
MacGuffin,
Atlas.
you know.
That was One Eye Atlas was a Muamua. And that's just it. It was the designation 3i basically means third interstellar. And then Atlas is the name of the telescope array that found it. So, you know, Oumuamua was really, and that's what I've said about Avi Loeb. I love him. I love his work. I would love to interview him. You know, most definitely. He's on my dream tree of interviews. But right now he's shooting about a 25%. He said Oumuamua was possibly alien technology, no signal received, just a big old rock floating by. So 0% there, swing and a miss. That's all right. It's what science does. You got to swing big in science. He said possible alien sphericals on the bottom of the ocean. Let's go scoop them up. Let's find out. Jury's still out. So right now that's a 50%. That's the two things he said alien technology wise aside from this. So odds on favorite, he's wrong. And it's a comet. And once again, that's what everything has pretty much said. So and there was radio signal received was the big story this week with it was that there was a radio signal that popped up in readings. And yes, there was a radio emission of hydrogen. A hydrogen emission, which will cause, a radio burst. So it wasn't like it was a transmission that it sent out. It was radio waves that emanated from it because of a hydrogen emission.
Now, how does
So
something like that happen? I know that, kind of going back to the subject matter of the
yeah,
show, things like
no
frequency,
frequencies.
energy, sound,
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's just it. That's why we know that the sun has a sound. And most of that is because of the actual fusion of or fission rather of or no, fusion of hydrogen into helium, things like that. So yeah, all of those things. Even right now with the geomagnetic storm going on, when you look at the different colors, those different colors are different frequency ranges of oxygen and other things that are being excited at different layers of the atmosphere. So the higher up it is, the different color it is. Um, so yeah, it's kind of the same way that spectroscopy works,
Wow.
where you can look at a star with a piece of prism paper, prism filter, and you'll notice that different stars, the prismatic light coming off of it, the different wavelengths of light, blue, green, red, yellow, are different sizes. And that's because the chemicals being burned and emitted by the star are different. So it's interesting. That's how we detect so many things with radio astronomy is all frequencies. So yeah, it's literally like taking the static from a radio and turning it into a physical image.
That's wild, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really incredible science. And even right now, like the what's going on with the geomagnetic storm, like supposed to be close to a level 5, they believe. Like we're
Is that
talking
high?
that's really high. Yesterday there were northern lights that we're seeing here in central Texas again. Which is almost unheard of.
Northern Lights in Texas.
Yeah, yeah, all the way down to, like, the Texas Hill Country. I saw pictures from people's yards in Houston
Oh my lord. So you
where my
mean
family
Aurora
lived.
Borealis shining down in
Yeah,
Dallas? Can you
yeah,
picture that?
yeah. It's wild, man. That's some intense stuff. But that's all cosmic frequency coming in on us and things like that. So
Wow.
we are surrounded by these things and engulfed by them, and even our technology all the time, to get back to the 5G conversation, things like that. We are swathed with this stuff all the time. So, yeah, the idea that there is now an actual diagnosis for like electromagnetic sensitivity syndrome, like
Ooh,
people
go
who
into
kind
that.
of like in Better Call Saul are like allergic to electromagnetic electricity or certain
Wow, okay.
frequency ranges, things like
I
that,
could
that they
believe
are
that.
affected differently. It's interesting.
Yeah, because there's all kinds of cases of people. I mean, even I've had this happen a lot. My wife has it happen all the time. She can't interact with electronics when she's in any kind of state of stress. She'll
Mm,
shut the damn thing off. She fried one of her phones
mm,
because she was so stressed at the time.
yeah,
Because of events going on in life, and she had her phone and she was looking at pictures, and a picture came up, really just shook her and reminded her of and phone fried. We had to chuck the phone. It wouldn't. We had to completely. It was a brick.
interesting.
Yeah, and she can't use the computer when she's stressed. If she's stressed out and walks past the TV, the thing shuts off and resets. It's to the point that you can almost bet on it.
Yeah, a physical manifestation of what she is feeling and putting out. Um, and that's something to be considered because it's a concept that I used to spiritually teach to the students that I had years ago. Was that you're responsible for every vibration that you drag into the room with you. So yeah, good for her for avoiding such things, knowing that that kind of stuff happens. Um, because it only serves to set you off more when it happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm the worst with it because a lot of the time I'll start a show up and the computer does the annoying thing of wanting to update.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And it
Well,
does the whole, it's gonna take a couple minutes to update, and then 20 minutes later, it's still updating. I'm like, what is this?
yeah,
What is this? What is
yeah.
going on? And then
Well,
it restarts, it starts to freeze up, it starts to get weird, and I feel like my mood, my energy level is interacting with the electronics in a weird way. When I approach a
yep.
machine or whatever, and I'm in a good mood, or I'm not thinking about something that's stressing me out, or I don't, nothing goes wrong. But when I have a lot of work to do, or something I'm stressed about, or there's a deadline, or whatever it might be, something's not going right, the machine starts to get weird.
And that brings up an interesting concept, which was really a lot of the birth of remote viewing, which is the idea of how do we affect the world around us? There was a paper by Hal Puthoff years ago that led to a lot of the Stanford Research Institute work into remote viewing, things like that. And the idea behind the paper was, are scientists affecting their experiment when they go home and think about it?
Mm.
The idea of, like, if you're sitting in traffic and thinking, "Did I leave my iron on? Did I leave my iron on? Man, I think I left my iron on." Could you think it long enough and hard enough to actively turn your iron on and burn
Oh
your house
Lord,
down?
I hope not.
You know?
Man,
And it's something that I bring up with paranormal research all the time, because once again, frequency is not just a sound or a color, it's a thought form. So how frequently are you thinking something? So could it be the fact that, and this is why I say, as a researcher, if you're going to go out and investigate somewhere, especially somewhere regularly, don't be going and watching a bunch of videos about the place, diving down the rabbit hole of stories and experiences and everything else. You're just polishing the filter through which you're going to look at your data now, you know. But number two, you may be partially manifesting what you're going to look for. You might be actively affecting that environment.
what is that? The name of that, is that the Heisenberg principle? Like you're observing something changes its nature or whatever.
Yeah, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Yeah, and that's even the idea of, um, like, the example of taking a picture of an electron. Um, the speed of camera that you would have to actually catch an electron in motion. You're talking insanely fast frame rate to begin with.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the because the picture of the electron was taken way before we had the cameras we have now? So the question comes to bear, did the electron know it was being observed?
I got a wild hot take for you that I don't know, maybe
Go
this
ahead.
has been said before, but I was thinking the other day, many days ago, this was about consciousness,
Mm,
and the fact that consciousness seems to be dependent upon the ability for electrons to pass, to travel.
sure.
And then I was thinking, well, what if that's because we call these things whatever we want them to be. It's not the name. Electron is the name that we gave it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
if an electron is they're particles of consciousness?
Sure.
And I was thinking, I don't know, because I mean, it just seems like if without electrons traveling, without electrons doing their thing, you don't have life. You don't even have
Yeah.
the semblance of, even if you have life, you don't have the ability to communicate. You don't have the ability to, like, if you're low on your electrolytes, if you're, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. The stuff that makes electrons go through your nervous system a bit smoother, a bit quicker.
Yeah.
And it just it I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy or whatever, but I was thinking, what if that really is, because we call it electron,
Yeah.
but what if it's something more than that?
Well, and you're definitely onto something there, Peter, because when it comes to quantum science, when it comes to these things, um, And that's why I say science is now rapidly coming down the path of the paranormal, and knocking on all of our doors because uh, since quantum entanglement won the Nobel Peace Prize, uh, things are totally different. The idea of non-localized consciousness is much more readily available to the scientists to consider, and the idea that like I made pretty science was one of the only classes that I made really good grades in school, forever and always did well in science. And I remember from ninth grade science the idea that we are 90% empty space, that our electron shell is so big that right now you and I are sharing an electron shell, Peter. Our electrons are commingling. So the idea of that alone is a huge concept to think about. So inside of that empty space is our consciousness, or is the consciousness made from the particles that are not the empty space? You know, that once again, that energy by all physics can never be created or destroyed. It's kind of like unringing a bell. You can't unring a bell. The only thing that's going to happen is that the bell wave goes further and further and changes as it moves, but the vibration continues, you know. So yeah, it's a fascinating concept to think about that, to think that we are we are consciousness, and that time doesn't exist at this place, and that's where a lot of the simulation theory, things like that, comes from. Even the idea of matrix. If you take exactly what you said, if 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 the particle is consciousness, if what we know as electron is consciousness, then what if we know as electron is all but binary and a one or zero representation? And at that point, yeah, that's exactly how all matter is made, is by the binary computation
It's
and
crazy,
assemblance
man.
of the ones and zeros. So, but once again, that's the beautiful job of science, is to hyperbolically hypothesize things and come up with thought experiments, and like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, thought experiment. The idea of relativity, thought experiment. But even that comes to bear with the fact that time doesn't exist, that it's utterly made up, because if it was a firm fact, then it would not be relative to the observer.
You know, I tried using that in school. It didn't really fly.
Yeah, yeah. I could appreciate that. But it's interesting to think about, because yeah, if you go to the moon, you go to Jupiter or whatever, you're going to need a totally different method of telling time. We literally developed different watches for the astronauts to wear on the moon and in space, because the gravitational field is not the same, so time passes differently.
Yeah, there's something that really I can't. I'm always at the just the edge of it, thinking about how much time and gravity are linked,
Yeah.
and that gravity is probably a greater force than just, it you drop a ball and it falls down.
Yeah.
It's there's probably more to it than that,
Well,
and we
but
haven't really
gravity in and of
figured
it,
it out yet.
by Einstein's theorem, gravity actively affects space. So
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you look at the curvature of space itself, when you put a gravitational object in it, it curves around it. So yeah, it's fascinating to think about that. And once again, at that point, because gravity is different, time is different. So time becomes elongated at that point. Um, so yeah, it's interesting to think about those things, because it utterly relates to everything. Um, and the idea of gravity itself affecting the world around us in that kind of way.
And gravity is dependent upon mass, is that correct?
Yes.
I gotta tell you, man, it's like it's really trippy.
Well, actually, it's the other way around, actually.
Okay, the
Before
other way
people
around.
hit me up in the chat there, it's the other way around. Mass affects the gravity. So the more massive the object, the more gravitational field it has.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause see, I love the theoretical and the sci-fi
Yeah.
aspect of things because every once in a while it's just like throwing spaghetti to the wall. One of them's gonna stick, and
Yep.
you're like, okay, yeah, that one actually worked out. It panned out. So as like a storyteller and as someone who really loves sci-fi, I love that aspect of just go buck wild with the connections of ideas
Yeah.
and what these things could be. But what really is, I think, absolutely mind blowing sometimes is that a lot of it ends up kind of panning out.
It that it's actual science that, yeah,
Yeah.
we have teleported light across the lab. We have now quantum teleported data across the internet. And even just the fact of this right here, like every bit of this is because of space travel. Like
Yeah.
our cell phones, digital devices, things like that. It's and it Neil deGrasse Tyson does a great job on Star Talk. He does a great episode on the rocket equation and how that changed everything scientifically, how it changed everything device wise, things like that. Because if you want somebody to be able to use this computer in space, every pound of material that you take into space takes 2 pounds of fuel. So that means that 1 pound metrically takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds of fuel to get into space because it's the 1 pound of fuel or 2 pounds of fuel, but you need 2 pounds of fuel for each pound of fuel.
Yeah. So
So
it
that's
keeps
why
on
you end up
exponentially.
with like the literally like something the size of a football field as the bottom booster stage of a rocket to get a tiny little capsule the size of a Volkswagen into space.
Before I get to my follow up question for you on
Go
that,
ahead, bud.
I do want to thank Spicer McLeroy. Thank you, Spicer, for gifting 10 memberships to the Comic Book Lounge. I appreciate that, man. And if anybody, if you got one of the memberships from Spicer, please give him your thanks and enjoy your stay. Sheldon Martin says, so when you need more time, what you really need is less gravity.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. And of course, the closer to the speed of light, the better.
Now,
Speed is nice.
now, this is the thing that I wanted to talk about with the in regards to fuel and traveling through space and all that kind of stuff. Uh, Obviously, whoever's visiting us is not going the fire up the gas tank and travel across space. Like speed of light cosmically is kind of a slow way to travel.
Mm.
What could they possibly be doing? Because I think that they'd be using some form of like manipulation of frequency, gravity, something or other, to get from place to place, quantum entanglement, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
to create some kind of a portal. What kind of methodology do you think they'd be using based
I
on
would
your knowledge?
I would be looking at frequency-based interdimensional technology. Something basically along there. You're a comic book guy. That's what the Flash does. He basically puts his hand on a wall, vibrates his molecules at the same rate as a wall, and passes right through it. So, no different to pass through a dimensional gateway the same way. You know, if you know where that dimension meets, and that comes to bear whether or not UFOs, UAPs, that kind of stuff are even intergalactic or interplanetary, or if they're interdimensional, you know? And that's a hypothesis to bring about with a lot of paranormal as to whether it's actually an interdimensional part of the equation. One of the you had Ghostbusters in your intro. The whole episode of Central Park West and that cult being there, everything else is actually somewhat based on fact. If you look it up, the workings of Aleister Crowley
Okay, yeah.
and what begat Lamb, which very much is an interdimensional being that was summoned by Crowley, as well as Goddard of the Goddard Space Science Center, and that's Lewis Goddard, and his name just left my head. The head of L. Ron Hubbard from Scientology. They were all part of the Amarantha workings, and those were intended to contact something from another dimension and bring it here. And part of that happened in Central Park West. So it's one of the reasons I love Dan Aykroyd is he throws in things like that where it's like, bro, that is some deep cut occult history stuff right there. But it's interesting that happened shortly before Roswell, before what we know as the beginning of gray aliens and everything else. But that was an interdimensional being.
Should we be trying to make contact with these things? Like I always wonder when they send out a signal, when they try to invite something.
And
should we be doing that?
man, that is something that I bring up regularly, especially in reference to like CE5, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. The CE5 protocols from Greer. It's not that I won't own a Ouija board. It's that I don't want one in my house because I know the actual intent behind it. My intent isn't that, but it doesn't mean that somebody else's intent when they see it won't spark something or bring something about. And I actively have right here on my system a picture of Lamb. Like I talk about it so regularly on my show. That is Lamb. That's the interdimensional being that Aleister Crowley and etc. summoned during these things. So you look at it and it is very gray alien, man. Very gray alien. So it's fascinating to think about that and to think that like, no, they weren't trying to summon an alien. They were trying to summon an interdimensional being. And the more you start listening to really deep UFO research, that's what you start getting into is much more interdimensional concept. And even some of the work of Michael P. Masters, who is a anthropologist, I want to say from University of Montana. I interviewed him. He was speaking at the MUFON conference a couple years ago, and I interviewed him. And part of his work is that they are possibly either interdimensionally us from another dimension or a future version of us. Because if you extrapolate out our biology and the way that we've grown and the way that humanity's changed in the face, things like that, we would, if you extrapolate that out by 10-12,000 years, we would basically look almost like a gray alien.
Yeah,
And
10-12,000 years of being on your smartphone on TikTok all day.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
You get
gonna look
those
pretty
spindly
gnarly.
little arms.
You're not gonna do a whole hell of a lot of mating either.
No, exactly. That is how you become a homogeneous species right there.
Maybe they're coming back to be like, don't do what we did.
That's that's what he says is when you listen to a lot of the messages given to people by the Greys is like, stay away from nuclear energy, don't do this. It's like they're giving us warnings of what to be careful for in the future.
Yeah.
Either that or they're coming back and trying to find out information. So yeah, it's a fascinating hypothesis to think about. But I choose to believe that most of these things are much more in the realm of interdimensional.
And when you say interdimensional, what do you mean by that?
I mean the fact that there is directly adjoining us. We are basically like suds in a tub when it comes to reality. There's our reality. There's numerous realities. Once again, when this corpus fades and we vibrate at a different frequency that no longer attracts this matter, we still exist. That energy goes somewhere. At that point, we are just energetic enough and of a different vibration to pass through a wall of an adjoining bubble. And now where you could call it heaven, you call it hell. Maybe it's hell if you're vibrating at a lower frequency when you pass. Who knows? I don't know. But
I guess that would kind of make sense if you're always, it's like a law of attraction sort of thing.
kind of.
And
Yeah,
if you're, birds of a feather flock together, if your energy, if you're vibrating on a certain level, you attract certain people to you. You attract certain things in your life. Um,
absolutely.
and it would make sense that if you are vibrating on a certain level, maybe you don't get rewarded to heaven or damned to hell, but on a frequency level, that's kind of all you can really attract.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it. You know, you've learned to play single notes, not a chord. And yeah, it's interesting to think about that because at that point it kind of gets rid of a lot of angst within religion and about religion, things like that. Lets everybody have that idea that, we continue on in the cosmos in some kind of way and that we have significance in the universe beyond this life.
It's funny with these concepts though that they're so old and they've been around for so long,
Yep.
and we're all basically talking about the same stuff. It's just we're coming up with maybe a deeper explanation for it, or maybe we're diving into the minutia or whatever it might be to figure out, well, what did they mean that whole time? That's what I find is so funny with a lot of the science that we consider to be so advanced now, is that it's just kind of validating what ancient people knew to be true,
Yeah.
but maybe they didn't know how or why or
Yep.
the molecular level of whatever it
And
was, but they were like, this is what's happening and this is what we're telling you what's happening.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'll pop up another image real quick that I bring up on my show all the time. This is from Advanced Science News. This came out shortly after the announcement of quantum entanglement winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is actively an image of two entangled photons.
No way.
Not even joking. It's a yin yang, ladies and gentlemen. Not even joking. That is the actual freaking image, dude. The actual, like, they didn't almost get it with the concept of yin yang. Like, they nailed it.
That is strange.
Isn't that wild? That is the actual image of two entangled photons. It is a perfect yin yang.
I don't even know, man.
That's that's wild stuff. It's
That
things that
really
you
is.
can't make up. So it's interesting. It's fascinating to think about that because yeah, that is an image and a symbol that has been used for thousands of years.
That's crazy. That just I've had a thought for a while. I have a lot of thoughts, as you could tell.
Oh yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I've had a thought for a while that we have some kind of like genetic memory, something that's tied to
Mhm.
our DNA, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's what we call instinct or whatever.
Yep.
It's kind of being bred and forced out of us with every generation. It seems like to not trust your instincts, to not trust your gut,
Yep.
whatever that might be. Um, but it really seems like there's stuff that's within us that that resonates, and you know it to be true, because it's been true for a really long time. Like we're all the result. We're like all like the not an end game, but we're all like the current whatever it is of like a ridiculously long line,
Yeah.
of ancestry. And so a lot of stuff happened. So we've got like a lot of stuff packed into us. And that kind of stuff, when I see those particles becoming like the yin yang sign, it just makes me think, is there something within whoever made that symbol that was like, yeah, that's what that is. That's true. Galactically, cosmically, whatever that might be, that's true. That's what that looks like. That's what that represents,
Yeah.
because you just know. Like there's certain things like we just know without having to really, you could think about it and come up with an explanation, but there's a lot of things we just go, I don't really give it a lot of thought. That's just, I just know that to be true.
Yeah.
And I find that when I see stuff like that, it just kind of validates the thought that I have that, like, yeah, we just know certain things are true. And when you see it, you know it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's interesting because there is the concept of, yes, we have had these things intrinsically brought into us for a long time, and yes, numerous, especially modern cultures, teach you to stray away from that, teach you not to listen to your instinct, to your gut, to go with the crowd, go with everybody else. Um, and I think it's to a lot of detriment, because there's some very interesting studies out there right now about the epigenetic effect of and passing on of PTSD, and the idea that that can be, just like epigenetics for obesity or epigenetics for addiction, things like that can be passed on. PTSD itself can be passed on from, and this was research done from Vietnam vets and their kids.
Yeah, because I had read something and also listened to a lot of stuff talking about even the impacts of Holocaust uh,
Yeah.
survivors and their lineage,
Yep.
their offspring, and they would have these kinds of things about traumatic
Yeah.
experiences and reactions and these inclinations and an instinctual kind of thing, and it's strange. And I think sometimes that manifests in dreams. Like there's dreams that
Mhm.
I have that are it just seems like they don't make any sense. All I've ever heard about dreams since I was a kid was it's a bunch of things you're thinking about and some stuff you go through in the day, and it's a hodgepodge, and then at night your brain's doing what it does.
Sure.
And there's stuff that happens sometime in my dream where I'm like, that ain't anything I thought about. That's nothing I went
Yeah.
through ever.
Well,
This
and
feels like I am living either a past life or a
yep.
alternate life.
Yep.
I'm seeing people who are strangers and conversing with them as if I've known them my whole life. It's these kinds of weird things. And then
Yeah.
there's other people who don't have any dreams. They can't remember
Yeah,
them,
they don't
or
they don't remember them,
yeah.
and, it's interesting because, um, there is, yes, your dreams are definitely your body. We go through most of our day. This is something I talk about regularly with binaural beats, things like that. We go through most of our day in a state of rote hypnosis. We don't think about most of our day. If you're driving in traffic to work every day, you are in a state of rote hypnosis. Your body knows where to go. That's why frequently you're like, "Oh crap, I'm at that exit already?"
Yeah, yeah.
Things like that. You're in road hypnosis. Your body knows automatically, it's on autopilot. From the time you learn to walk and fulfill your own needs, you no longer think like, "I'm thirsty. Get up and walk, legs." You just get up and you go get something to drink. You rarely even decide what you're gonna drink. You already almost preternaturally know what you're gonna go drink. It's rarely like, "I think I'll have a coffee," when you're in your own home.
Yeah.
when you're in society, in the
It's not like your
world, and you
thoughts
see
are
a coffee
bad
store,
writing on a
maybe.
show.
But yeah, exactly. So the idea that we go through that state of rote hypnosis most of the time means that we're basically much like Bruce Lee in your intro, which that's one of my favorite quotes ever, is the idea of you need to be like water and take on the form of the cup. Water doesn't fight the cup. Um, it just adapts and goes with the cup. So your body adapts, your mind adapts. It moves through the rest of the day and deals with the things that immediately confront it, immediately endanger it, that kind of stuff. And then the rest of it, it will subconsciously deal with when it has the time, which is when you're asleep. Now it's the subconsciously part that's wicked cool, because that's where you're getting the rest of that. And that's literally where remote viewing, things like that, are directly sourced, Peter, is that non-localized consciousness that, because we're in 90% empty space and our intelligent particles are roaming around everywhere and time doesn't matter. Yeah, the idea of the Akashic records really does take on a whole new meaning, and the idea that there is an esoteric and a different way of gathering knowledge and data in the world that your subconscious mind can connect to, that your conscious mind wants to make sense of, and if it can't, then it just shoves it aside into the bin, you know so, and that's one of the struggles that you have to get into, or get past rather, with remote viewing, is the idea of, while you're awake, tapping into subconscious and just letting it flow, not trying to make sense of it as you do it. Because if you're trying to make sense of it, if you're giving it nouns, then instead of verbs and adjectives,
Yeah, then you're going with
uh,
conscious thought.
you're going with the
Yeah.
conscious mind at that point, and you aren't listening to the subconscious anymore. So yeah, it's a very backward process from meditation, where you're trying to silence the monkey mind. In remote viewing, you want to give the monkey a typewriter and just let him go.
I
Just let
like
him
that.
go. Just write it all down. And it's fascinating, because you'll start finding all kinds of things that, yeah, are very dreamlike in that way. And I used to do dream work, like programming myself to go to sleep to find an answer, that kind of stuff. But man, it's different when you get that subconscious connection while you're in a conscious state of mind. And it's those beautiful moments of inspiration, daydreaming, that kind of stuff that are rooted in subconscious. That's why I'm like, even with my 8-year-old, when he's daydreaming, like, I don't interrupt. Let let it go. Because there's a beautiful thing there, that so much creativity is sourced from.
There is a lot going on in modern times where you're so inundated nonstop with
Yeah.
stimuli,
Ugh.
so much of it. And there's no time to think about nothing, for lack of a better term, to just kind of let your mind wander.
Yep.
And I think it's so important to be able to find some way to let your mind still wander. Even if, like, you're in that state of hypnosis, like, I'll be doing things sometime that it's a very repetitious thing. Um, I'll be like, I'll just say, for example, I do a lot of printing at home, and I
Mm.
put books together and this and that, and there's a process
Cool.
behind it.
Yeah.
And so, when I'm in the whole process of whatever, I'm kind of almost on autopilot, because you go and you do the thing, and you get the paper out, and you sort it, and you put it here, and you do that to it, and you fold it, and you do so there's all these steps. And I got into that state of mind a lot in retail, doing,
Mm.
like, stocking the shelves
Yep.
and just inventory check, and it's a lot of kind of work that you're on autopilot, and you just start thinking, or at least I
Yeah.
did. My mind starts wandering, and I
Yep.
would come up with a lot of ideas for things, for stories, for something to do with my life, or I've been working on a problem, and it's almost like the background is working still,
Yeah.
and I'm tapping into that by being in this hypnotic state more or less. Because I think a lot of people hear hypnotic state and they think like you're under hypnosis, like someone's got the
Yeah, yeah,
watch and you're
yeah,
doing
you're
the,
gonna act like a chicken in front of everybody.
yeah, and that's not what this is. It's so even getting in the mindset of being creative,
Yeah.
drawing or getting in that flow state that a lot of musicians and artists talk
Yeah,
about.
the zone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff comes from that. And
Absolutely.
but when we're constantly inundated on a conscious level
Yep.
to look at this, pay attention to this, worry about that, especially worry or fear or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, stuff that really sends your consciousness into overdrive. Um, it shuts off all that other stuff. It's
Yep.
impossible to be creative when you are inundated with all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like this whole setup over here behind me, like this is my hearth in the classic Greece sense where it's like build a hearth for the muses to come to. But it's also set up like this so that I hit one power button and everything I need to create music comes on. So if I have an idea, I don't have to spend 20 minutes pulling gear out, getting it connected, getting wires hooked up, things like that. I turn it all on and a keyboard is hooked up, ready to go. And I just hit record. I pot up a channel and I hit record and I start recording and making music. There's as little lag time between idea and creation as possible. That way you don't lose things. You don't get bogged down. You don't lose the idea, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. And that's just because I've chosen to prioritize that in my life though. But when you I don't know if you're a big TV watcher. There was a show, Halt and Catch Fire. I believe it was A&E that put it out probably about 5 years ago now. Um, it's where the guy that my God, his name just left my head. The bad guy from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie was played by Pace. Lee Pace was in Halt and Catch Fire, and it was all about the Silicon Valley and the beginnings of IBM and Dell and the internet and all that kind of stuff. Kind of covered that decade of the world and the beginning of personal computing as opposed to business computing, because before personal computers, that's all it was used for. IBM was international business machines. Like it was used for high-end accounting and things like that. But they were trying to make it available and usable by average people like us.
Mhm.
The problem that they had was the quote cooling threshold of 30 milliseconds, where if the brain, if you click the mouse and the computer doesn't respond in 30 milliseconds, the brain gets bored. And you start banging the mouse and you
How's
get
that for an
upset.
attention span?
You get upset because it's not responding as fast as a human would
That's funny.
in conversation. You know, it's not having that back and forth reaction with you in that kind of way. So your interest wanes rapidly.
Wow.
So your want to stay on the personal computer was only about 30 minutes at a stretch, an hour at a stretch. And they're like, we've got to get this up higher. Otherwise, what's the point of having a personal computer? So yeah, like that was
Wow.
literally taken into consideration at the beginning of personal computing is how do we hook the brain on wanting to just wreck shop on this thing?
That's funny. Wow, man. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That makes total sense though.
Yeah. Like it was a part of the consumerism of the computer was like, how do we make the brain want to keep using? Because otherwise it wants to go do something creative. It wants to go play with clay and have a tactile experience.
Yeah, it
That's
makes
where
me
we've been for millions of years.
It's exactly like when the internet was a lot slower because we had to use dial-up, And
Yeah.
everyone's like, all right, a half hour, an
Oh
hour.
God,
This
yeah,
is
man.
exhausting. I
Good
got it.
God, send somebody down a 150 megabaud line right now and see what their reaction would be. Like,
Oh
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Geez, people, what would you do if porn went back to a GIF sequence?
There's you ever see the show IT Crowd?
Yes.
Yeah, there's that little part where Roy is having a slow internet, and he's like, and he's trying, he's like on like a dating site, and he's trying to like see this chick on a dating site, and he clicks on her picture, and it's just like loading really slow, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh, you remember when you spend all night and only see 8 women?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember back in the day of like dialing into a bulletin board system to swap files before the internet existed. Like before AOL
Yeah.
in that kind of way where it was like, don't touch the phone, I'm downloading. don't, don't don't answer
Oh
it if
man,
somebody
that's right.
calls.
Yeah.
Like you'll mess up my whole day of download on this
Wow.
video game, mom. Don't do that. Swapping games and swapping files with people on bulletin board systems. Yeah,
Everything else was so much better though.
it was right.
The internet was worse, but it seems like
McDonald's still
everything
had a
else
value menu.
and
You could
still
feed
did,
a family for like $8.
and it didn't look like a Soviet bank of
Yeah,
McDonald's.
yeah, right.
Like I don't know what they're doing now with that.
Oh,
There's a McDonald's, especially one by us, that looks totally straight out of like 82 Soviet, it's just this rectangle gray building. And if you didn't say McDonald's on the side of it,
if it wasn't for the arches.
there's no arches even on the,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It just says McDonald's on this big gray, dark gray and black building.
I wonder if they're an
Rectangle.
authorized franchise. You may have like a McDonald's pop-up.
And it just feels like, is that like a weapon stockade?
Yeah.
Is that a prison? Is it a bank? I really don't know. The last thing you would think is it's a McDonald's, because the
Yeah, right.
McDonald's I grew up with, it's like the colors of food. It's like yellow and red and white and brown, and there's a
Even
playground in the front, and all this like is so colorful, and everything about it just screamed, friendly and inviting and everything else.
and well, and that's frequency. That's frequency. All of that is part of subliminal advertising, Peter. If you notice the color of food signs, things like that, Wendy's, Popeyes, they all incorporate the colors red and yellow.
Yeah.
Because those are colors that activate our hunger in our brain. They make us hungry, they make us want to be active. It's fascinating. Even like the color of the inside of schools, that off-white taupe, the color of the inside of buses, the soft seafoam green, that blue teal green that they use, like those are calming colors. It's that's why school windows are tinted more than usual. It's not just for AC costs. It's also because like it keeps you more docile to have less sunlight.
They don't want you to have a nice, beautiful day outside and the sun coming in. They're like, how do we make this look more like a prison?
Yep. Well, they're designed by institutional architects. Like, they are designed by the same people that design prisons. Like
Even
precisely by the same people.
The exact system for public school, especially, was based off of the factory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The increments and the alarm and all of that stuff was based off of the factory, because it was about creating workers.
Yeah, the Hessian school system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I always, whenever I found a kid that was intelligent enough and got it, like I remember having that conversation with my wife's nephew, and I told him that because he was having a problem in school. He wasn't really enjoying high school, that kind of stuff anymore. He was just like, I just want it to be done. I got like 2.5 years and I don't know what to do. I'm like, listen, bud, I know it sucks. Believe me. All right. You're made of different stuff. You aren't there for that kind of learning. I get it. I was like, let me hip you to what that is actually for. I'm like, probably about 70% of people have a job that they just have to go to and check in. And it keeps the lights of the business on. It keeps everything up. They contribute part of society and to part of the moving parts that the world takes part in. And that's a necessity. That's a thing that has to happen, which is what I've always said since the pandemic. Funny how we labeled all of those people essential, but gave none of them a raise afterward. Like not one bit.
Pandemic,
And
there's too many things to discuss
yeah.
that'll get the stream shut down.
Well, the two things I bring up all the time are there was an amazing study done by the National Institute of Health, speaking of frequency in your brain, on the frequency of negative news cycles and the effect of that on the brain. And it basically causes bruising to the hippocampus.
I believe it. I believe it.
The hippocampus regulates a lot of your panic, things like that. So the idea that like you were locked away with negative news cycles shoved in your face 24/7 for almost 2 years. And then in addition to that, another one by the National Institute of Health was how the actual COVID virus itself did the same kind of damage to your hippocampus, which also means that the vaccine does the same kind of. So it doesn't matter if you got COVID or if you took the vaccine or if you were just sitting around watching the negative news all the time.
And
Like that was like a triple whammy of frequencies to our brain and things like that happening to us.
So when I hear something like that, my next question would be, what purpose does the hippocampus serve?
The hippocampus regulates, basically it is like the soft glove that surrounds your amygdala. The amygdala is very much like the reptilian side of your brain. It's the side of your brain that is fight or flight, very reactionary, things like that. So yeah.
Makes perfect sense why you'd want to damage that bad boy.
And why the world is the way it is after that. Doesn't matter who you were before, you came out different, and it's interesting to see that and to see the fact that like those are actual studies. Feel free to go to nationalinstituteofhealth.gov and look them up, folks. Those are things that I reference on my show regularly. Where it's like and I'm not going to say that it was done as a means of control, but if you think they ain't going to hop on a means of control when provided, you're wrong.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that's like that where it didn't start out with the intent of that, but once they discovered that that was a side effect, they were like,
absolutely.
Let's see how long we could do this for. Let's take some data. I think the craziest one for me was the whole Johnson and Johnson, and it gives these little bit of asbestos particles in the baby powder. And they approach the FDA, and the FDA finds out about it and is like, yeah, let's just see how much is okay for the babies to have before they get cancer. Like, what? And they put the whole thing into like this study, this experiment on babies for like 50 years until they're like, yeah, it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Yep. There were studies like that done on the effect of smog on kids in New York. And how'd they do it? Put them in a room, pump it full of a little bit of smog. It's like, what the what?
Yeah, that's the part of science that to me is more akin to like mad science.
It's crazy sauce is what it is.
Yeah, it's like, let's let the beagle smoke 10,000 cigarettes before we determine that smoking is bad for humans.
Well, I mean, probably better than the beagle than the human. If you're shoving them in a lab to find out, I'd rather do it to no offense. I'd rather do it to some mice than to some kids.
Oh, goodness. I think that there's a karmic load.
There is
that
either
happens
way.
onto that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just it. When you start thinking about these things, once again, that means of control, that means of even separation of us as a society, a setting up of an us versus them. Um, One of the things I bring up regularly is the social media. Most of them, even YouTube that we're live on right now, got part of its initial round of funding from Incutel, which is the financial arm of the CIA. They actively fund future technologies, things like that. And one of the big first stories about Facebook back in the day, when you still had to know somebody from college to be friends with them, when flash mobs were happening. You remember the days of the flash mob and
Yeah,
kitten
yeah.
videos and oh God, Tourette's
What
guy. God, I miss
Yeah,
Tourette's
yeah.
guy.
Oh, the beautiful era of the internet where it
Yeah,
was just like a
yeah.
free for all party,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when the Arab Spring happened, and
Yeah.
Hosni Mubarak was ousted from Egypt and ousted from power. That happened from a Facebook post that was like, "Let's flash mob downtown."
Wow.
They never found the dude that had that account. So, proof of the fact that a flash mob call can overthrow a government. The power of social media can overthrow a government.
Oh, yeah, I've thought for,
That's
years now that they saw what was happening when social media
Yeah.
first came about, and that it was by and large people getting along and just kinda sharing their day to day,
And
and
cat
everyone
videos.
yeah, and
And
everyone
cat videos.
realizing, "Yeah, we got a lot more in common than we thought. I can't go and hate that dude who is wherever that I'm supposed to hate.
Yeah.
Um, we're so much alike. I wanna be friends with this person." And then eventually it turns into, we gotta figure out a way for them not to get along
Yeah.
because they're gonna all start getting along, and we can't do wars anymore, and we can't have all this stuff that puts people in positions of power,
Yeah.
so we gotta figure out a way to game the system, and that's honestly what I think has occurred with social media for
Yeah.
about maybe the better part of 10 to 12 years.
Yep. I would definitely concur with that, Peter, and it's all because of, once again, frequency of thought, the way in which we think, and the ease with which that's hijacked. The one thing I point out regularly is we know subliminal messages work because we actively have laws against them.
Very true.
We have laws preventing the use of subliminal advertisement because we know it works.
Is that
You
why
know?
they, overtly have the people dancing on the pharma ads now?
Well, not just that though, but frequency-wise, when you get into the math of your eyes and your brain and the way that we see, that whole Tyler Durden concept of throw one frame of video into 30 frames of a second of video, and it'd take a butterfly to catch you. It'd take somebody with a really quick eye to see one frame out of 30 in a second. Now you start doing the metric math of film and animation going from 24 to 30 frames per second, which is the natural flicker rate of your eye, the natural frame rate at which we see. That's why they called it the idiot box. It's why I grew up in the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s. The boob tube. You're going to be an idiot if you sit there and watch that thing for too long, boy. Things like that. That's because, yes, after a certain amount of time of watching the same flicker rate of your eyes in front of you, you will fall into a state of hypnosis. You'll fall into a zombified state. Now let's turn that into HD and take it to 60 frames per second or
Mm.
120. It's not necessarily that they're inserting an image. They don't have to now. All they have to do is show you the commercial. You're now in a suggestible state 4 times faster. They don't have to lie to you.
Wow. That's
They don't have
wild.
to do anything like that. They can just show you the commercial and you want it. because you're in a suggestible state 4 times faster than you would be in 1980 with a tube television.
Now, are some people more uh, susceptible to this than others?
Yes. Yes, there are definitely people that are more susceptible, especially to things like hypnosis, stuff like that. I'm not gonna say that it's like a voodoo curse where you have to believe in it for it to work or anything like that. But there are definitely brains that are a little more resilient to this kind of technology, even binaural beats. There's a range of people. My friend's girlfriend is one of them. Who, when she listens to him, she's like, it feels like somebody's giving me a wet willy in my brain. She's like, I can't do it. Because as opposed to frequency therapy, like a singing bowl where
Yeah.
you're listening to a pure tone, your body is responding to that tone and vibrating in sync with it, no doubt. And it's learning that in a muscle response kind of way. But as opposed to that, binaural beats actively makes your brain create the frequency on its own, not just react to it. So what you're doing with binaural beats is feeding your brain two differential frequencies that are slightly offset from each other. The sum of which is the tone that you're targeting. So
So it's almost like a sonic negative space in a way.
it's a sonic competitive space where
Well, let me.
basically
What I
the
mean is
the
more
two
like when you have an
offsets.
image, let's say,
Hmm.
and the negative space is what creates the positive space.
Yes, okay.
That's
Yeah.
more what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the fact of you feed your brain 420 in one ear, 422 in the other, and it's gonna pop up 421.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, okay, this seems really weird. It seems like you're actually trying to do this. So it starts generating that tone on its own. So it's much more binaural beat therapy, and binaural beat use is much more like taking your brain to the gym and training it to create the frequency when it needs it, as opposed to just responding to it when heard, like a sound bath or a singing bowl.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So using the two together actually reinforces things even more.
Man.
But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sound always hits me a lot harder than visual.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the way for everybody, but YouTube is a really good example for me.
Mm.
There's a lot of content on here. There's a lot of videos, a lot of people on here making stuff that sounds interesting. And I'll go to click on it and I have to run away because the voice coming through from whoever, they're talking fast, it's high pitched, it's like high anxiety mode for me is what it
Yeah.
kicks in.
Yeah.
I need someone who's a little bit more even keel, a kind of a either a mid-range or a deeper voice. And same thing with audiobooks. I can't get into an audiobook if
Mm.
I perceive the voice to be more on like a shrill or higher pitch level. Sorry for everybody who might have a higher pitched voice.
That's all right.
But and I'm talking like weirdly high, almost like when someone's like
Yeah.
sped up, and that kind of thing. But yet I like the Chipmunks for some
Yeah.
reason. It hits different, but for me, sound hits a lot harder for me
Same.
than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, one of my jams on the road whenever I travel for work is old time radio drama. There's a what's it called? Old Time Radio Player is the name of the app, and it's free, but it's got tons of like Old Green Hornet, things like that. X minus one. I listen to a lot of like old school sci-fi radio drama, things like that, where it's like telling Ray Bradbury stories, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And that's what I
nice.
go to sleep to at night instead of watching TV. So it's just a dark room with like somebody telling me a story while I go to sleep. It's wicked cool. There's sound effects. It's a full on story. It's like watching a movie with your eyes closed. And it's funny because I'm somebody who will sit with a movie on in the background, like while I'm working. and absorb it and catch it, and my wife will be like, how do you do that? I'm like, how does a blind person enjoy a movie? Like, there's still voices, like there's still a whole panoply going on there that you do not need visual for.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, on the opposite end, if you just have a video of a wall falling and you don't hear the crumble and you don't feel the rumble, it really don't mean a whole lot, you know? You can be pretty removed from it pretty fast because the impact of that moment is not being translated without the sound.
Man, that's wild. That makes a whole lot of sense though. Makes a whole lot of sense. At least to me, makes a whole
Yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah. It's a different experience and one that, yeah, takes place through vibration and frequency in our
Yeah.
body. Even the idea of subwoofers, stuff like that, the idea of the subharmonic range that you're feeling. Um, that's one of my favorite sound stories ever is the movie Earthquake that happened years ago. That was some of the first truly dynamic. It was voice of the theater speakers,
Are you
things like
talking about
that.
Charlton Heston, that movie?
Yeah. But it was some of the first use of subwoofers inside of a theater.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
And they had to actively go in to the theaters that they installed these systems in and dial them back
Oh man.
because, like, people were getting nauseous instead
Wow,
because
yeah,
they
yeah.
hadn't taken into account the compression wave of the subwoofer inside of the
Oh
box of the
yeah,
theater.
yeah.
So it was like people
Oh
were,
my
like, getting
god.
nauseous from just low end, like, they couldn't hear that they're just feeling. So, like, they started replacing them with, like, subharmonic vibrators in the seats, so you would get the rumble before you heard it, things like
Wow.
that. But it was, yeah, like, it was actual pressure waves going on inside of the room from the subwoofers because they hadn't taken into account the
That's
subharmonic wave building
that's
on
gotta be
itself like
wild.
that.
Did
Like,
there
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 was
were
there
probably
was
people freaking out
fatigue
a
going
lot.
on in the buildings,
Oh man.
like drywall shaking off,
What?
like actual, like, small earthquakes going on in these old theaters that they
Wow.
installed them in. Yeah, yeah, totally epic sound story where it's like they just built it so hoss from the beginning that they had to go in and just like, "Yeah, let's just, like, take half this out and turn it down."
That's nuts.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man. Yeah, it's sound is so important when it comes to that stuff. Um,
absolutely.
it's such a thing in film even. There's so many
Mhm.
filmmakers will be like, if it doesn't sound good, it's actually gonna look worse.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's kind of the same thing at a rock concert. Um, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, front row seats are great, but the room is tuned for the guy in the middle with the soundboard. Like he's sitting in the sweet spot. So that's where you want to get your tickets, is right up around there or directly behind it. Because that's the point in the room where the subwoofer and the sound all comes together mathematically. The sound system is dialed for that spot specifically because the bass waves travel in a longer fashion than high range and mid range. So, that it's one of those, like, the punch and feel of a subwoofer doesn't really develop until about 30 feet from the source. So that's why
That's
home
crazy.
home sound systems are dialed a little bit different and that kind of stuff. But if you're at a concert, like, go up near the subwoofer and then back up about 30 feet from it, and that's where you'll start feeling it, like, punch you in the belly as things happen. It's interesting. And even from there, humidity, that kind of stuff, affects things incredibly, the way that sound travels. So if you're out there in the field with uh, a recorder trying to record Bigfoot or trying to record EVPs, that kind of thing, these things make a massive difference, especially in just general consumer grade technology, like a general $30 Palm digital recorder off Amazon, not really made to operate in like a 70% humid environment at 90 degrees with precision. You know,
Wow.
you're
I
going to
never
talk
thought about
about
that. Yeah.
you're going to talk about humidity starting to develop on the circuitry and especially on the element of the microphone that will affect the way sound happens, that will affect the way sound is captured.
That's
So,
crazy.
and can even cause artifacting, all kinds of things. So, yeah, all of that stuff makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons why whenever I made the shameless plug, whenever I made the field observation and encounter log,
Oh,
that's
hold on. I got you. Your looks like you're mirrored. I just noticed that now.
yeah,
Okay,
I
now
am.
let's.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
I noticed that earlier whenever I popped up the advanced science article. I was like, "Oh, that's backward." But that's some of the entry work inside of there whenever you have a paranormal experience or you recorded something is what was the temperature? What was the humidity level? You know, things like that. Those are all scientific points that if you took it to a lab, they'd want to know, you know?
Man, I never considered that, but that makes total sense.
Yeah. All
Wow.
that makes a huge difference in how every bit of equipment works in the field when it comes to
Yeah.
audio or video or even photography.
Yeah, because video with high humidity, you can see it. Lights pick up different. The light waves scatter different.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, fog is the perfect example
Yep.
when you're in that condition. But audio, I never gave that consideration. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it even carries different, like, will carry to different distances given different humidities. So, what you're hearing may be something utterly ordinary, it sounds like it's miles off, and it may be, but because of the humidity, it's able to travel that far that night.
Yeah. Which obviously, now that I think about it, of course it makes sense because you're underwater, things sound real weird.
Yeah.
So if you just extrapolate that into humid conditions in the air,
Yep.
obviously it's not the same as being underwater, but it's still going to pick up things
No,
differently.
however, what you can analogize from that is the way that things sound with water on your eardrum. It's kind of the way that things sound with water or
Oh
moisture
yeah.
sitting on the diaphragm of a microphone.
Wow. That's wild, man. Comics Legend wants to know what is your go-to audio frequency for binaural beats?
Um, 852 is one that I use a lot.
And why do you
So
use that
there's
one a lot? What's the
that
significance?
that's 852 is kind of like crown chakra, things like that. So yeah, yeah. I tend to go more for things that will bring about experience for me. I don't really use my binaural, at least binaural beats personally. Um, in I listen to them nightly as I go to sleep. I've written quite a few albums like that that just kind of like play in the background. But when it comes to what what I use for meditation or anything like that, it's normally trying to get to like the point of astral projection, something like that is more what I'm going for. So, uh, but really, it all depends on, I guess, a personal taste and what the focus is for the session. You know, I make quite a few binaural beat albums for specific purposes. Um, the whole Targeted Mind series began with uh, Dr. John Hall is a very good friend. Targeted individuals is one of the causes of my show. One of the many things that we talk about. And he posited to me one time, he's like, I know you're into binaural beats and you're an audio guy and you do music. He's like, could you, he's like, have you ever made binaural beat music? I was like, yeah, I've never released any, but I've made quite a bit, you know? And he was like, would you be able, he's like, if I get you with somebody who's targeted and they give you their symptomology, would you be able to craft them a session of binaural beats that could help them alleviate their symptomology? I was like, yeah, Yeah, sure. We can focus on some things. Um, and he did that a few times, and we had some great success with people. So that really began my inspiration for crafting a generalized session for targeted individuals, and that began Music for Targeted Minds as the first album in the series of the Targeted Minds series. So Music for Targeted Minds is the first one that was made specifically for targeted individuals to help alleviate their symptomology. The second one is Experiencer, which is tuned specifically for experiencers of the third and fourth kind, people who have been in proximity of craft or have been taken aboard craft and abducted, to help them retie to earthbound frequencies and help shed their PTSD. Uh, Volume 3, which just came out in, I guess that was August, uh, is specifically made for remote viewers. So to tune your brain to prepare for remote viewing sessions, things like that. And Volume 4 is almost done being crafted right now. The binaural beat track is already done. I'm working on a couple more parts of the musical part, but that is specifically for experiencers of the paranormal, to help shed the PTSD from their experiences of the paranormal. So, yeah.
Man, let's see. Spicer asks, are your binaural beats on YouTube or Spotify?
You can find them, yes. If you look for the music of Christopher Jordan, you can find them. However, and this is just a dirty secret, little backdoor secret for those of you who support musicians, things like that. Most platforms lock down tracks to $1.29. That's the maximum that you can charge for a track whenever you distribute through something like DistroKid, things like that. So what you will find are like 10-minute samples of my 1-hour tracks on YouTube Music, on Spotify, on Apple, things like that. If you would like the whole track, you have to go to my actual Bandcamp. And at that point, you can download the entire album. I normally charge, like, I think it's like $25 for an hour-long track. But yeah, all of that you can find at artofchristopherjordan.com. You can find links to everything at curiousresearch.org also. There in the store, one of the first sections is all the albums. So if you click on the album, it'll take you straight to the Bandcamp to be able to purchase. But yeah, it's a funky thing where it's like, wait a minute, you want me to sell an hour-long track for $1 and
Yeah,
call it a
yeah.
single? That's not a single. That's that's an album, man.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you mean it's a single? That's an hour long. Like, that's beyond Rush level. What do you mean?
The radio's gonna cut that down a couple minutes.
Yeah. No, not even 10 minutes would be allowable on the radio. Even that would be beyond a bathroom song for a DJ.
Is there a frequency that you found that conjures paranormal activity?
You know, 19 hertz. And I wouldn't say necessarily that it conjures it. However, 19 hertz is specifically where a few weird things start happening. 19 hertz is known as the paranormal frequency. It's basically a frequency that will kind of make you feel like something is watching you or something is in the room with you. It's also the frequency at which auditory hallucinations can begin.
Wow.
It's the frequency at which the water in your eye begins to vibrate. So
my Lord.
optical hallucinations can begin. Things like that. So
19 hertz, huh?
Yeah, 19 hertz. That is 1 hertz below the range of typical human hearing. So it's the beginning of the range of frequencies that you would feel instead of here.
Does that occur anywhere? Is it used anywhere, to your knowledge?
There are a few sacred spots that incorporate 19 hertz. One of them, and that's another album that I'm busy working on right now, is Sacred Spaces, which is basically a frequency meditation album based on sacred spaces. But the standing wave in the King's Chamber
In the Great Pyramid?
of the Great Pyramid is
Wow.
19 hertz.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've had a hypothesis for a while. I need to somehow 3D print like a 3-foot scale model of the Great Pyramid, complete with chambers. But I've hypothesized for a while that the whole idea of the two shafts going into the chamber, especially them having baffles in them, as though they control airflow, was it possibly used as a binaural beat chamber? Because just like blowing across a straw at that height, those shafts would always have wind passing by them. So were they tuned like a straw, and you could change the baffles to be able to change the length and pitch of the actual pathway to basically create a binaural beat in the chamber. So just wild hypotheses that my reefer-addled brain go into, Peter. Occasionally the bong resin from college clears and I have lucid moments.
I've never done anything, to be perfectly honest. I haven't even
Good for
smoked a
you.
cigarette.
Good for you.
The only thing I do is I had one wild summer as a 21-year-old, and I learned my
All right.
lesson. And then and that was just with drinking.
Okay.
And then every now and then I have a drink. Like
All right.
I'll have like a nip, and I'll have that thing for like 6 months, just like
Yeah.
nursing it, use it
Yeah.
medicinally.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the experiences people have had, whether it's with like psychedelics or DMT,
Yeah.
ayahuasca,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But I am scared beyond the capacity for rational thought, as Egon would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do it myself.
I can appreciate that. I went through an ayahuasca ceremony about a year ago, and did a lot of personal preparation for that. I don't know that I would have actually done it had my old bandmate and very, very good friend not known the ayahuasca, and had gone through ceremony with him numerous times. He invited me to a ceremony at his house, and I was like, absolutely. And then things ended up not happening. I ended up not being able to go. The guy came here to outside of Austin and was doing a ceremony, and I ended up not being able to go. And he called me and he was like, man, we've done months of prep for this. Like, I went off my daily anxiety meds, Peter, all kinds of things, because you can't be on anxiety meds and ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Like, you will die. You can die from toxic serotonin uptake. So you'll be like the happiest you've ever been in your life, but it'll be the last time you're ever happy.
Wow.
Because you'll be dead after that. So yeah, like he talked with me, like we checked in like once, twice a week. How you doing? How you feeling? What's it like being off your meds? Things like that. It was amazing and great. And I have not had to be back on my meds since.
Oh, that's incredible.
It was probably one of the most beautiful experiences and nights of my life. You're normally supposed to do it for a couple of ceremonies, 2 days in a row. We ended up being able to do it just he and I for one night, which is pretty rare for you to just have like a solo ceremony with somebody like that. But man, it was incredible. I have had some beautiful experiences spiritually in my life, and like my experience that led me to the seminary. But I felt a different presence that night. my whole experience was coming to try and find a place of quiet in my life, trying to find a place of peace in my life, and trying to lose a little bit of ego in my life. You know, to quit, basically let my give a damn break a little bit. That'd be all right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
which happens naturally for a lot of people by the time they get to like 60, 65.
yeah, yeah. And it was wild because he's playing the guitar, like he's imbibing with me throughout the night. But playing the guitar and singing in Portuguese the whole time, like traditional songs. And I kept wanting to sit up and tell him like what the song, like where it took me and what it meant to me. Um, and 2 or 3 times during the night when I tried to sit up and tell him something, I literally felt it, and this is just me and him in the room. I literally felt a hand grab my chest and push me down. And I heard, "Shh." Not even joking, man. Like, the most visceral, real, like, "No, no, lay down, relax.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is why you're here." And it wasn't until the next morning when more purging happened and we stopped and clarity came and everything else when I was like, "No, he was losing his ego too. Like, you can't feed his ego telling him what a great guitarist he is in the middle of him praying for us to lose our egos to the medicine and to grandmother." Like, so it was just this beautiful moment of realization of like, no, no, you were supposed to be quiet. You weren't supposed to say jack. But the literal experience of feeling that hand on my chest push me down, um, and tell me shush.
That's
Like, no,
funny.
no, no, just be
Wow.
quiet. Just be quiet. You came here so you could be quiet again, remember? So yeah, it was fascinating and very interesting. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my ayahuasca night and my ayahuasca experience. And I will always say it changed my life, changed my perspective. Um, I have not, I think in the last just over a year of doing that, I have used even my supplemental anxiety medication all of twice.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was a daily anxiety sufferer, man.
That's incredible. I know that they're doing things now with psychedelics where, and I
Yep.
don't know the exact what they're doing in terms of how they're extracting the chemical that
Mm,
makes it whatever hallucinatory or something,
yeah.
but they're treating like PTSD with that,
Yep.
and it's been working wonders for vets and all kinds of people that suffer from
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and there are some amazing treatments. I used to have a guy on my show, back when I was Dudes and Beer before I transformed into Curious Realm, um, and he worked at a ibogaine clinic where they used ibogaine, which is an indigen used by African tribes, um, in initiation ceremonies, things like that, but they used that as a system purgative for opioid addiction. And had some amazing results of like people coming for one treatment and utterly turning their life around,
Wow,
like
that's
completely
incredible.
dropping opioid addiction in one treatment. Uh, incredible stuff, incredible stuff. And that is now, I want to say, ibogaine research is now fully open in the United States.
Oh, wow. Good.
So yeah, his facility that he worked at was down in Mexico, like near Baja, something like that. But yeah, just fascinating things. And once again, to bring it full circle to frequency and ancient cultures and the whole idea of the yin yang and everything else, like it, these are all things that they've known about for years, you know?
It really is. It's crazy how And I mean, we don't have enough time to dive into the conspiratorial side of so much of this and like
No.
the big business side of it.
Yeah.
But it really is crazy how many people could be down a completely better and different path than the one
Yeah.
that we're constantly told, this is the path, this is the way, this is what you take, this is what this is. Don't even
Yep.
consider another option. Don't even all of that, holistic or whatever. That's like
Yep.
it's hokum. It's and that things are starting now to come around a little bit and accept homeopathic stuff,
Yeah.
holistic responses with medicine, and looking at things that aren't just like have a pill and go
Yeah.
by what that path is and don't consider anything else.
Absolutely. And I was honestly, I remember, um, probably about a month and a half after my experience, I went to the doctor for my physical, and my wife was like, "What are you going to tell the doctor? Because like, aren't you getting off your meds today?" And I was like, "Yes." She was like, Why are you going to do? What are you going to tell her about why you're doing it?" I'm like, "The truth. Why? Why would I hide that information from my doctor? Like, I have no problems telling my doctor that I went through an ayahuasca ceremony." Uh, and I did.
How did that go?
It went fantastically well.
Good.
She she was actually very receptive. She was like, "Wow, really? That's interesting. Tell me about it." And I told her, and I was like, "But I was like, and I may come back in a few months, you know, and tell you otherwise." I was like, "But I prepared for 2.5 months going off my meds so that it would be fully out of my system before the experience. And it's been a month and a half, 2 months since. So I've done like the better part of a year almost without my daily meds, and I'm doing okay. And I
That's
venture to
fantastic.
guess that I will be able to do the rest of the year without my daily meds, and I'm going to be okay." And she was like, "Well, I'm glad to hear that. Anytime I can not prescribe a medication to somebody, I'm happy." I was like, "Oh, good." Like,
Sounds like you got a good
not
doc at
not
least.
that I wanted a pill mill for a doctor, but it was
Yeah.
one of those, like, I'm glad to hear a doctor say, like, "Good, I'm glad to hear that you are willing to give your life a shot without that," you know? And it's been an incredible journey. It's been great. I've had a lot of moments of self-discovery along the way. There have been a lot of truly reopening of raw human nerves, things that I had kind of chosen to build up walls around, things like that, that are back and reopen and nice to have back in my life. Points of empathy that I had kind of blocked off just because of the hardness of society, things like that. So,
It
yeah.
almost sounds like it helps you revert a bit back to a childlike state when you're more open and accepting.
Mm. Yeah.
You don't have the crystallized notion of a lot of different things that adulthood and life will bring on, and you
Yep.
just are like, no, this is you close yourself off from a lot of stuff for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you're not as open as you were when you were a kid, which is why I think kids have so many different kinds of paranormal experiences too. We say like
Absolutely.
imaginary friend or whatever, but give me a break.
Yeah.
Imagine like this isn't just, oh, here's my figures or my toys or whatever, and I play with
Yep.
them and I make stories up. These will be full blown conversations and kids that can describe their imaginary friend and
Yeah.
their imaginary friend. I mean, unless that child has some kind of mental disorder. Uh, this is obviously some kind of interaction with something that they're experiencing, they're seeing, and that our closed off adult minds or whatever can't comprehend it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just can't fathom. And that's just it. There comes a point of disconnect. That was part of my show this last Tuesday, actually, was talking about the whole concept of belief and paranormal investigation. And do we investigate on behalf of our belief and in confirmation of our belief, or does our belief drive us to investigate? You know,
Yeah.
what drives your curiosity in that kind of way?
Yeah, because so often you'll hear people that are diehard skeptics say things like, "The reason I don't believe in any of whatever is because I've never experienced it.
Yeah.
So it possibly can't exist. It's not true." And I always think, is the reason you don't ever experience anything that you would consider outside the realm of normalcy for you, is the reason you don't experience that because you're so closed off, as
Yeah.
opposed to you just don't experience it, so therefore you're closed off. Instead, it's the other way around. It's like a
Yeah.
chicken or the egg scenario.
Well, and even the resolved point of, "No, I don't believe UFOs exist. Belief implies faith. I know they exist. Like, I know that there is something in the sky that is unexplainable. That is just patent fact,
Yeah.
that there is a 3 to 5% anomaly of what's in the sky.
Yeah.
So you don't need to believe anything for that to be a fact. You don't have to have faith in aliens. You don't have to believe in extraterrestrial life to accept the scientific fact that there is a 3 to 5% anomaly of the things flying through our sky. And that's one of the reasons why I am a big fan of the change from UFO to UAP, because phenomena. I'll hold up a book that I keep right here handy. This is a scientific desk reference of strange phenomenon. There you go. Strange phenomena. This was printed like 3 years after I was born, like 1978 was the last time this was printed. And it's everything from ball lightning to crop circles to, swamp gas to everything that is a strange natural phenomenon, so that you can eliminate it from your data set as you investigate scientifically in the wild. So yeah, by calling it a phenomena, you land it squarely in the backyard of science. Like, science has to, by definition, account for the phenomena in a data set or remove it. One of the two, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man. Oh, I gotta prevent myself from thinking about things right now because I would just have another hour of a conversation. And this is almost 2 hours, and I
It's
don't
coming up.
regret a second. I'm gonna have you back on though again.
Absolutely, and
'Cause
always, man. Anytime, Peter.
this was great. I'm so glad we were able to continue this from the
Same.
last one, and
And almost right from where we left off. So feel free to
yeah,
go watch the first part from last year, everybody, if you want more content, because it will only give you preface to the beginning of this conversation.
absolutely. And we gotta have the trilogy
Absolutely.
capped off. I gotta have you back on in a couple months, maybe after maybe February or something like that.
You bet, man.
That'll be great. Man, oh man. Chris, thank you so much, man. Before
Thanks
you
for having me.
go, anything you want to shout out, anything you'd like to direct people to your work or where to find you?
Actually, one of the things that we have started with Curious Research over the last many months, I have written the first of its kind group therapy protocol. So the idea is basically like AA for experiencers. It's an anonymous platform. It is a platform, and the guidelines are there. You can go to curiousresearch.org/support, and you can find the Awakening Together protocols. You can start your own anonymous paranormal support group in your area following those protocols. It's a non-judgmental space, no advice allowed. You come in, you share your story. People of like mind and like heart are there to listen, um, and just listen, because that's where it starts. So that's one of the big things that I've been promoting. I'm getting ready to come out with what's basically the equivalent of the big book, which is like 100 pages of how to process your experience and come to
Wow.
terms with that. So yeah, I think right now that there is a huge need for it amongst so many communities. There are like, don't get me wrong, especially in the UFO UAP community, there's the MUFON Experiencer Resource Team, amazingly talented. The International UFO Bureau has their own group of people like that. But before you do that, you have to go through and make a report. Before anybody comes to you for help, you got to make a report, and then you got to go through 3 or 4 different investigators to hit the radar of the Experiencer Resource Team, things like that. So where do you go until then to just find common people who have had experience as well and are just trying to deal with it?
Yeah, because it has
Trying
to
to come
feel
to terms with it, because sometimes you can't even go to family with your problem, you know? So yeah, I have stepped forward in helping to create that. You can get the observation and encounter log at Curious Research. You can find all my music at Curious Research. You can find the podcast Curious Realm at curiousresearch.org. So yeah, pretty much that is a one-stop shop. We also have the Knowledge Vault there, which is full of declassified government documents, patents, all kinds of things, as well as a resources and tools page. So if you're, we're still busy building that right now, but it's basically full of free online tools you can use to analyze your audio, analyze your photographs, things like that. So
That's
yeah,
important, especially in the day and age of AI.
that's right. That's right. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me on again, Peter. I can't wait to come back on.
Oh, I can't wait to
Appreciate it.
have you back on. Tomorrow work for you?
Saturday.
Oh man, thank you so much, Chris. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys too.
Thank you.
You guys are always great. Really appreciate you. And we'll have Chris back on again in a couple of months, just a couple of months, and I'll think of more things to ask him in the meantime. Until then, everyone have a wonderful night. Chris, thank you again so much. And everybody,
You bet.
have an even better tomorrow. See ya. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.